I was driving my slow little shitbox the other day when a Lamborghini Urus went speeding past me, and that got me thinking, I know I don't need to splash 200 grand to go fast, but what can I get for £5,000? Luckily, lots of fast cars from the early 2000s have dropped massively in price, so there were quite a few options. One of them's a BMW 130i. I've mentioned this in previous videos because I really like it. It's a small rear-wheel drive hatchback and it has a big 3-litre straight-six petrol engine shoehorned into the engine bay. It's the triple OG granddad of the famous BMW M140i. It's quite surprising that BMW never made a 3-litre diesel 1 Series. That would have been mad, something like a 130D or a 135D. They really missed out on a future classic there. I'm not the only one that thinks that either. Some people have actually swapped the diesel M57 engine from a 330D or a 335D into a 1 Series. Imagine a talk on that. But anyways, back to the 130i. There's a channel on YouTube called Skid and Slide. It only has about 200 and something subscribers, so go support them, subscribe to that channel. But that guy has multiple videos of him sending it in a 130i. Some proper epic videos. But be careful when you're watching those, it will make you tempted to buy one as well. Now they were released back in 2005, so they're almost 20 years old now. And they've depreciated enough to pick up a decent one under £5,000. If you want to mod it for more power, you could go as far as adding a turbo or a supercharger, or even both if you're an absolute nutcase. To me, the stock 260 horsepower is more than enough in a small car like this. It does 0 to 60 in 5.5 seconds. Again, it's rear wheel drive, so sliding it about will be nice and easy if you want to. Just don't cheap out on the tyres or you might end up in a ditch. TR Hamza's old 130i ended up being sold to Calvin's Car Diary, and it's actually up for sale right now for about £2,200. But that car is far from a nice example. It's an absolute shed on wheels. Would be good for like a drift or track build, I think. I did really want to buy that one, but I don't think I'd want to pay more than £1,200 for it as it is. The 1 Series is a little bit small, especially the rear seats. So if you have friends that actually need space for their legs, then a B7 Audi S4 might be a better option. The B7 Audi S4 has a big 4.2 litre V8 engine and 339 horsepower going through all 4 wheels, and it has a manual transmission, but most importantly, you can get it as an estate or a wagon for the Americans. Now, they are known for their timing chain rattle and drinking a lot of oil, but to be honest, what do you expect? It's an old Audi. Reliability isn't going to exactly be its strong point, so make sure you keep a few grand aside for repairs if this is one that you do decide to go for. There are plenty of mods out there for the S4, but the most popular for some quick performance upgrades are a simple tune-up and a downpipe. The interior is a bit dated, but if it bothers you that much, you can add an aftermarket screen, get yourself Apple CarPlay or Android Auto, whatever it is you need. And the community around this car and Audi in general is quite big, so you'll have plenty of car meets to go and attend and show off your car, do some drag racing, or whatever you're into. Now, the standard 339 horsepower that the S4 comes with gets this car from 0 to 60 in 5.2 seconds. Now, with a stage 1 tune, the power goes up to about 375 horsepower, maybe closer to 400. I couldn't find any figures on the 0 to 60 with a stage 1 tune, but it will be better than 5.2 seconds either way, which is still fast, but be warned. Now, the S4, as I said, it's not exactly the most reliable car. It does love a trip to the mechanic, so if you want something that's a little bit more reliable for your daily driving, go for a Mark 8 Honda Civic Type R. Now, I know, the Civic Type R, the Mark 8, is one of the worst Type Rs released. It's heavy, it rides super harsh, and it only has 198 horsepower, but it's the most reliable car on this list. The basics of its K20 engine were carried over from the EP3 Type R, the generation before, and as long as you don't treat it too rough, it won't give you too many issues. The unpopularity and age means that you can pick up a high mileage ragged out shitbox for about £2,000, but up to 5 grand will get you a nice, well maintained one. Maybe even something that has some decent mods like upgraded brakes and upgraded suspension. Now, the downside of this particular Honda Civic is that they do look a little bit immature, so if you want something that's a little bit more grown, then you should check out the Mercedes S55 AMG. Now, the S55 is a full-on land boat of a car. Originally, it was intended to ferry important people about, but the full fat version of it gets 354 horsepower from a naturally aspirated 5.4 litre V8 engine. Now, that's enough to get this living room on wheels from 0 to 60 in 5.6 seconds. Now, I know in this modern world of 400 horsepower hatchbacks and 1000 horsepower EVs, 354 horsepower doesn't exactly sound like a lot for an S-Class. But back then, it was quite close to the supercars. Later on, the S55 had a supercharger added to it, and the supercharged version had a mental 450 horsepower. Now, obviously, again, by modern AMG standards, it seems a little bit low, but this is the early 2000s that we're talking about. The Ferrari F430 only had 30 horsepower more, and that was actually purpose built to go fast. As you probably guessed, this engine is thirsty, so the MPG is terrible. But to be honest, when you floor it and you hear the noise it makes, that won't really matter. Well, it might not anyway. And it is still an S-Class, so the leather seats are softer than 5-ply toilet roll, and the suspension feels like you're driving an expensive mattress on wheels. Now £5 will just about get you a non-supercharged S55 AMG, but if an SUV is more your thing, then check out the Porsche Cayenne S. The Porsche Cayenne S comes with a 4.5 litre naturally aspirated V8, putting out 340 horsepower and 420 Newton meters of torque. It's not quite a rocket, but it'll still do 0 to 60 in 7.3 seconds, which is kind of fast. And obviously it's a big 4.5 litre V8, so it makes an absolute racket doing it, especially if you stick a cheap and cheerful Facebook Marketplace special straight pipe exhaust on it. Now I did want to include the Cayenne GTS, as that's got 405 horsepower, but to be honest I just couldn't find any under £5. The cheapest one that I found is about £7,000. The Cayenne is a 4-wheel drive beast of a car. They're generally quite reliable, but obviously do your checks as it's a cheap Porsche and it can be a gamble. I have plenty more videos coming up. To stay up to date, subscribe to the channel here and watch another video here. Catch you in the next one.